Shavua Tov. It is August 29th with Jason Caplan and Ephraim Wenger, our second session of studying Sefer Yetzirah. Shavua Tov, Ephraim.
Shavua Tov, Jason. How are you?
I'm good. Baruch Hashem, we got some great feedback on the first session. People are very interested that there would be such thing as a chavruta on Sefer Yetzirah. This is kind of a new thing for folks.
Yeah. So it does exist because we're doing it right now. So
yeah, exactly. Good. Well, I'm using this new camera, so when I look down to talk to you, it looks like I'm looking away, but I'm really looking at you talking. So but I thought this camera angle was better and a little bit clearer. Also, because I have more diagrams this time from Aryeh Kaplan's book in English. I want to show that while we're talking. But you have some news about Aryeh Kaplan's book in Hebrew, am I right?
Yeah, I have a bit of a wacky story with this whole. So I've been searching for Aryeh Kaplan book in Hebrew for Sefer Yetzirah.
Yes.
And the book that they published, they stopped publishing the book, I think, in 2011 in Israel.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been on the hunt for this book for months. I've been calling up different publishers and suppliers here in Israel. I've been walking down the streets of Jerusalem trying to find the book.
Yeah.
And everyone gave me the same answer. It's like as the moment I ask you, do you guys have Sefer Yetzirah Aryeh Kaplan? They're like, no, it's long gone. There's nowhere to. So I've been looking all over Israel, and there's really haven't been any place who've sold it. And then you sent me, a while ago, I think that link, you found the book somewhere in New York. Some bookstore in New York had it. And I looked into it, but it was, it was way too expensive. It was like triple the price than here in Israel. And I felt like, maybe I could still find it. If they have it in New York, they must have it in Israel. So I kept looking for it, but I really couldn't find it. And then I said, maybe other stores in New York will have it. Other stores in the US will have it, or maybe around the world. I couldn't find it anywhere. So I decided to just purchase it with this New York bookstore.
Svarim Center, svarimcenter.org to plug them. That's where I'm getting all my books, Svarim Center.
Svarim Center, that's right.
Yeah.
And I made the purchase, and after I made the purchase, I was thinking to myself, I wonder if he has more copies. Was this the last copy? Does he have more? So I refreshed the page, and the page was gone. And then, I wanted to confirm, so I emailed, the owner of the store, and I asked him, was this the last copy? And he says, yes, he confirmed. So that got me thinking.
Last copy.
The last copy, and I think, since Israel is the only place who has the Hebrew sold and produces the Hebrew version, and this was the last copy in America, this is the last copy in the world.
I think that's it.
Book in the world that Baruch Hashem I received. I didn't receive it yet. It did arrive in Miami, my in-laws. But
did they know? Did it arrive there? Did they come?
It arrived, yeah.
Great. Oh, that's good news. I didn't know that part. I knew the part about getting the last book on planet Earth of Aryeh Kaplan's Hebrew.
Yes.
Yetzirah. That's a find.
Okay, so it's up for sale now. I'm going to sell it for millions. No,
he's keeping it. Speaking of which, that is an awesome story. That's the last one sold on planet Earth. I think it's pretty cool. And I also want to plug Svarim Center because I got Saja Gaon's Sefer Yetzirah from them.
Yeah.
And then another Gaon, the Gaon Vilna Gaon, got his book from them too. So svarimcenter.org. I don't work for them or get any kickbacks. I just think that he's an awesome website, an awesome store up there. Avram Nissan.
Yeah, sure.
That's awesome news. Very good.
Yeah, it was wacky. Last book on Earth.
Yeah.
Where did we end?
1-3. What's that?
1-3. We ended up, right?
Yes. Do you want to read? Do you have Esther Sfirot, Lima? Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and read it. So, משנה ג' 10 ספירות בלימה, במספר 10 אצבעות, 5 כנגד 5, בברית יחיד מכוון באמצע, במילת הלשון, במילת המאור. So, do you want to read it in English?
I'll do it in English because I think Aryeh Kaplan does a great job with this. So 10 Sfirot of nothingness in the number of 10 fingers, 5 opposite 5, with a singular covenant precisely in the middle, in the circumcision of the tongue and in the circumcision of the membrum. Yeah. So I think it's the idea of the Sfirot aligned with the human body.
Yeah, I think that's the idea where they say there is the idea of each sphera has its unique energy located in a specific area of the body,
Hmm.
but then there's like this fundamental layout of the fingers, right? It's like it's like this symbolic, I think, thing with 10 fingers
Yeah.
representing
Let's
what,
show that picture.
right?
That's pretty cool.
What are the thumbs? What
I think
sphera
it's
are the
Keter and Bina.
Chokhmah and Bina?
No, Keter and Bina.
So Keter is the right and Bina is the left.
Now let me see. I guess he's holding the hands this way. Keter is the right, Bina is the left. Correct.
Hmm.
And it's called polarizing the 10 sphera through the 10 fingers. Great.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking about the sphirot, and the interesting thing about the sphirot, it's kind of deceiving with the diagram, the traditional diagram, but it's really not a hierarchy.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually a hierarchy. Like we generally think like Keter or like Chokhmah Bina, they overtake the lower ones, but it's
Right.
actually a matter of depth. It's not a matter of hierarchy. It's not a matter of who's higher and lower. It's what's more fit to the sphirot is the circle we saw last time. It's the
Mm-hmm.
depth of it. It's like you go deeper, deeper, deeper.
Would you say it's the idea of enclothing, that one is enclosed in the next one? I like the idea of enclothing because Hashem's light's so obvious in Atzilut or maybe Keter, and then it's enclosed into the next Sphira, or maybe there's a different way to think of it.
Possibly, yeah.
I mean, do you think of it as a flow from top to bottom of God's energy,
Yeah,
or
I think I see it as a from top to bottom. Yeah, I do imagine it from top to bottom.
mhm, but not a
But then
hierarchy? Is what you're saying?
but
Yeah,
then that brings me to the hierarchy structure, which is not necessarily because like if we say God is a one, like how could you say it's broken down into
yeah,
different? It's the way it shows up. It's the way is expressed and specific in these specific lights of the sfirot. But I was just thinking of that circle where like, and I think I don't remember where I read it, but I was just thinking about that circle, which it gives it depth rather than height or hierarchy.
no, I like that word depth, and I think it solves the idea that God is everywhere, but so invisible that people can be atheists. So it's the idea
Right.
that God keeps enclothing new and new physicality to the point where there's, I mean, I feel like unless you're in Yerushalayim, it's like you could really feel like there's almost no spirituality in the world. It's just bereft of a creator. But that explains through the Sefirot how God's light is completely clothed and hidden, sphere after sphere.
Yeah,
So you're saying there's more depth or more maybe godly light in the higher Sefirot.
yeah, yeah, pretty much. Should we do? Let's do Dalet, Mishnah Dalet.
Yeah, let's go to Dalit.
Please
Because,
count yours, right? Mishnah Gimel. Um, and Mishnah Dalet, I'll say it in Hebrew here.
yeah,
עשר ספירות בלי מה, 10 ולא 9, 10 ולא 11, הבן בחוכמה וחכם בבינה, בחון מהם וחקור מהם, ולמד דבר על בוריו, והשב יוצר על מכונו.
yeah. So it's 10 Sefirot of nothingness, 10 and not 9, 10 and not 11. Understand with wisdom, be wise with understanding, examine with them and probe from them, make each thing stand on its essence, and make the creator sit on his base. Now that's got to be a meditative direction, right? Because we know the creator doesn't sit and doesn't have a base, but there must be a way that we place that thought in our mind so fundamentally that we really have that kind of relationship with Hashem when he's really on
Yeah,
a base in our mind. Yeah.
so it's interesting that Sefer Yetzirah really emphasizes here 10, and not 9, 10, not 11.
Don't make a mistake. Yeah.
Don't make a mistake, and I think the reason so is because um, I'm looking at one of the Pirushim here. I think the reason so is because a lot of interpretations would say that Keter, for example, is not a Sphira. It's like Keter is like God, it's like godliness. Or so like it's like no, it's that 10 Keter is also part of the Sphirot.
That's very
It's
good.
not
I see
more,
that
it's not
I see that
less.
Ray Kaplan's thing about he's saying that don't think that God is a sphirot. Don't include Hashem
Right.
in it. Make sure it's 10 sphirot. And I think it's also many times Kabbalists, make sure people aren't praying to a sphera. Pray to
Right,
Hashem. We'll
right,
explain how the universe works, but don't pray to a sphirot.
right.
Okay, very good.
Cool. So that's why I guess it feels the need to emphasize on that.
Oh, here's another good part. I missed this. That I think this is very important because a lot of times there's a debate in Judaism whether one can be one with God. I know that's very popular in the Eastern meditation to be one with the universe or one with God, but Sefer Yetzirah is saying if you reach a high level, gesund.
Thank you.
If a person is reaching these high levels of meditation, you might think that you're reaching God or meditating and merging with God. So Sefer Yetzirah warns that don't think you got to the 11th step. Make sure that there's always a distinction between person and God. We never merge into God completely. And I think that's a unique thing in Jewish mysticism. I can't say I see it other places. I think if I look at Sufi meditation or Hindu meditation, a lot of it is I am God or I am that is a popular
Right.
phrase, which might be true. I'm more comfortable in Judaism saying you're getting close, but you're not merging with God. God is always separate than the human soul.
Well, that gives a good explanation for the why not 11, but then why not 9? Like, why does it emphasize on the lower number, the 9?
That's a good question. Why not 9? I don't see
Uh,
a discussion on the 9.
yeah. No, so I think it's I think the Ramak, Rabbi Moshe Cordovero, who was one
Mm-hmm.
of them at the time of the Ali here
Mm-hmm.
in Tzfat, he wrote a book called Pardes Rimonim. It's one of his like famous works, and that book is broken down into 32 sharim, 32
Oh, is it?
graphs. Yeah, it's a that's like his basic Kabbalah first, I think, in basic Kabbalah book.
Yeah.
And he writes about this. He writes about this 10 and not 10 and not 9. I don't remember exactly what he said, 10 and not 11, but I think there was an argument, or there's a, like you said, there's just an easy, you could really conclude a miss, kind of like people would think Keter would be like not a Sphira, and it's like part of God, or like they'll start making these differentiations, how the Sphirot are God itself, or
Well, we know from
uh,
the Gemara that it's dangerous to get involved with all this stuff. I
yeah,
think the way we're studying is very practical, but I mean, Rabbi Akiva went with Ben Azai, Ben Zoma, and Acher. And his name wasn't even Acher, but he's called Acher because he left Judaism altogether. Ben
right,
Azai, I think, went crazy, and Ben Zoma, I think, died.
yeah,
So there were 4 great, outstanding rabbis who got involved with the Pardes, with this
yeah.
kind of thing. So I think these are the warnings of Sefer Yetzirah to say, here's some guardrails. Really, you have to be careful with this kind of meditation. It's not to make mistakes on.
Yeah, I mean, what all the Mekubalim say, you got to know how to enter the Pardes, but you have to you could only enter if you know how to leave. That's what they say.
Yeah, man, it's an amazing thought. I love what it says. The Rebbe Kiva left in peace and returned in peace. I think he was at peace, even though he's
Yeah,
living in a terrible time in Jewish history. He was at peace with this physical world, so he would come back. I mean, I think if I lived during the Roman persecution, I think I'd want to stay out in the spiritual world and not come back. I could think
right,
about myself doing that.
right,
So
right.
he had that ability to promise himself he'd come back to the physical world. There's something really interesting about Ari Kaplan's commentary here in English when he starts talking about it, because I really enjoy this type of thing about Chachma consciousness.
Mm,
That is a pure nonverbal thought, which is difficult to attain. So I like that with the idea of improvisational music, which is to me nonverbal thought. And so he's saying that a lot of the Kabbalists were trying to attain this Chachma consciousness. It could be done with a mantra. Now, let me see if he has. Yeah, he says that just first clears the mind. I don't know if you have any perushim on Chachma itself here.
he says Chokhmah clears the mind. Is that what he says?
He was saying the mantra, the repeating of a name. Like I think Rabbi Nachman talks about saying Ribono Shel Olam to start his Bodhidus meditation, which for him was unstructured talking to Hashem. But he said you could repeat that to really get settled and then get your thoughts together to talk to Hashem.
Mm-hmm.
So he talks about Bina consciousness and Chachma consciousness. I guess we'll see a little bit about that later.
It's interesting. Also, you mentioned Rabbi Nachman. He also in music. Dafka, I think there is something here about we could make a connection here to the musical side. So like Rabbi Nachman, I think I told you this once before. He has he speaks a lot about this thing called the Halal Panui, the Tzimtzum, the this empty space in which the world was created out of, and he defines that to be like the core foundation of the universe, of entire existence. Like that's the most important process, he says, in the creation of the world. That's the reason the Rosh Hashanah is the creation of the world, and he
Uh-huh.
defines it as like the Tzimtzum, like the essence of Rosh Hashanah is a Tzimtzum. That's also why Rosh Hashanah is the month is Tishrei,
Mm-hmm.
and Tishrei is the first three letters is Tin Shin Resh. It's going backwards, right? And Tzimtzum is about reduction. It's about going backwards.
Wait, say it again. Which Tishrei is?
Taf, Taf Shin Resh. So it's three letters going backwards from Taf, the last letter, Shin Resh.
Oh, it's going backwards, going that way. Okay, yeah, yeah. Because I was.
So so he found that to be interesting because it explained like the Tzimtzum is about going backwards. It's not about going forward.
Well, let's explain for people listening what is Tzimtzum. The idea that God created a vacant space and withdrew His light. Right? How would you say it?
Yeah, I mean, I think traditionally, I think the way it's presented is like God. Obviously, if God is infinite, there's an infinite light, then there's no space, to create the world, to create the universe.
Mm-hmm.
In order for it to happen, he needed to kind of like if you imagine it, move to the sides, whatever that means,
Move to
or,
the side.
or create space in order to he created this empty space in order to really create the world to evolve from that.
Yeah. To create.
Right, to create. And they're through few processes that happen, like the Ari, the Arizal,
Mm-hmm.
Rabbi Yitzchak Luria, one of the great Mekubalim of the, what was it, 15th century, I think,
15, 16.
15th, 16th century.
Mm-hmm.
He really laid out a lot of the theory of creation in this sense. And he spoke a lot about the Tzimtzum, and then part of the process, then there was a breakage, a Shvirah, a breakage of the light, that this empty space couldn't contain all the infinite light, and it broke, and it shattered into different locations, and that's where the Ari he finds our mission to kind of like
Collect those
take
sparks.
take the broken sparks and put them back together. And then there was a tikkun that happened, but Rabbi Nachman, for example, he says this empty space also exists within us as individuals.
Yeah.
He takes it also to more like trauma, for example. Trauma and traumatic places are like really tragedies that could happen in one's life, where he connects that to the empty space. Like there's this empty space in us. So it's interesting. He says that the only thing that can kind of like infiltrate this empty space within us is silence and music.
Mm.
In other words, nonverbal communication is the only thing that
space. Yeah.
is nonverbal, is not structured, and the empty space is about, you can't take something structured and limited like words and go into an empty space. He says music can do that because it's not verbal. It's not limited by words.
Oh, I think that's very true. I think psychology talks about people's shadow side. Everyone has a shadow side, and
Yeah.
it's really nice with empty space. And the only way to access is, I think that's where music therapy is probably pretty powerful, because I think you can sit and talk to somebody about your problems like a therapist, but to do it through music, it's just a whole deeper level.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's the
So
genius of the Hasidic world, is taking these Tzimtzum ideas about the universe, but then showing how it applies to the person. I think that's what I really love about Rabbi Nachman. How does it apply to me that there was a Tzimtzum and vessels were shattered, and he really brings it
yeah,
down to the person's life.
that's really I think the big psola, like the uniqueness of Hasidut, is where they took Kabbalah, right? It's all based on Kabbalah, and they said, how do we understand this? How do we understand ourselves through understanding the structure of the world? We could maybe understand the structure of our psyche, the
Yeah.
structure of ourselves.
But then
That is,
even going further now with meditation, mindfulness, music is really getting even deeper into the individual,
yeah,
which seems like a really exciting part of today's Jewish mystical world. Is how does the
yeah,
individual find their own path, even in this highly organized community-based Judaism?
yeah. So I'm saying, so he says here in Sefer Yetzirah, right, haben b'chokhmah, and Ari Caplan, what he wrote about chokhmah is, it's, what is it, is the, what's the word you use in English?
He used Chachma consciousness, sort of a level of thinking, a level of awareness.
Ah, chacham b'chokhmah, chacham b'binah.
Because he
Yeah,
says Chachma consciousness is particularly important in reaching the Sefirot, as mentioned earlier. Sefirot are ineffable. Yeah, ineffable. I should be good at English, and cannot be understood verbally. As the Sefer Yetzirah itself says, they must be reached by paths of wisdom. Like we said, the Netivot are these hidden paths. So you have to have this, like you said, the hidden language, like music or silence. That is through the paths of non-verbal Chachma consciousness. That fits in very nicely with what you said about Rabbi Nachman.
so that's right, the non-verbal, exactly,
Yep.
that's what I'm referring to. So non-verbal chokhmah seems like there's an opening there with the music. Because it's also, the chokhmah is like one of the highest field, and yeah, so it's interesting.
That's really good. That's excellent.
Yeah,
Um,
nice,
let's see. I mean,
nice.
he has something about make the creator sit on his base. And I think he's saying that, during prayer time, and this is where Ari Kaplan gets into Atzilutz, Berea, Yetzirah, and Asiya. Do you want to tell us about the four worlds?
Yeah, so in what connection? How does he connect it here? To what part?
Um, he's saying that Atzilutz is the nearness of emanation, that Berea is the throne, that you're actually getting into creation, that Yetzirah is formation, and then Asiya is making, or the world of action. So he's got his
Yeah.
chart here. Let me hold this one up. So I guess he's talking about the different levels to get to Hashem's throne in terms of meditation.
Yeah, so I think the great Mekubal Rizal, he really laid out the foundation, to these ideas, to these theories. I mean, they were found in the Zohar, the four worlds, but really came in and like broke it down into this huge theory, this huge process. And yeah, so I don't know, I'm not too familiar, I think, with the whole deep theory about it. But the four olamot, as you said, is Asiya, is really the physical world in which we live here and we exist here today, and Yetzirah and Bria and Atzilut. And it seems to be that the difference between Atzilut, which is the spiritual world, or if we want to call it that way,
Yeah.
and the lower worlds is Atzilut, where there seemed to be some sort of static light. It's some sort of there's not much. So it's not about a movement, but there's no dualism like there is in the world today, right?
Okay, that's good.
Or there's this dualism of good and bad,
Mm-hmm.
light. In other words, there's always tension between two forces. There's always movement between forces, right? So you could think of always anything. There's dualism, anything, right? Man and woman.
Day and night, yin and yang. The whole yin and yang idea.
Exactly, and
Right.
it seems to be in Atzilut. There's like this oneness, right? This oneness of light, without the movement back and forth. What's called the Gatzov Hashav in Hebrew. Without this, so it's like a static.
Returning. Yeah.
And then that's like the world of Atzilut, and from Atzilut is where the rest of the worlds kind of came into being. Each one, which is with its own like uniqueness, received its light in its own way, and all the way down to the world over here. There seems to be like this correlation between Asiya and Atzilut, which is us, man, and the infinite. And
Well, I think our world's supposed to be considered Asiya, right? Aren't we Asiya down here?
yeah, Asiya, yeah.
So I don't want to get too much into personal experience, but I feel like when I'm in Yerushalayim at the Kotel, I feel like you can feel the different worlds, and you can feel that spirituality, that there's other things out there than just our world, and especially in Sfat for me and Yerushalayim. Again, I don't like to give away too much personal experience, but I feel that in Eretz Israel, in those holy centers, it's very clear to me that there are other spiritual worlds or higher consciousness. I don't know how to phrase it. I don't mean to say like I've visited other worlds. I just think that you get a perception that there's a more refined spiritual essence out there.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Like they define world as in Hebrew, but like I think like other spaces of consciousness is maybe a bit.
Right. We say olam, but could be
other
a way
world is
to perceive.
abstract, like it's somewhere, far away, in the galaxy, or I don't know what. And I
Yeah,
need
when
to
we say
take.
other worlds, it starts to make you think like, are they contacting aliens? I mean, for me, it's just that there's another world just means that you can perceive that there's something beyond just living in a physical world. And when science, certain atheist scientists say that this is just our world and this is just what we have, and there's no creator and it's just running. It doesn't, when you're in Yerushalayim and Sfat, I mean, not that I have an objective proof, but for me, that doesn't ring true, and so, but I wouldn't
Yeah,
describe it as another world, but I do think that there's a spiritual essence that can't be measured.
yeah, no, I agree with that for sure, for
Yeah.
sure. No, there's a special feeling. I think Jerusalem is the only city in the world which has an actual medical condition. Uh,
Jerusalem syndrome.
Jerusalem syndrome, right?
I saw
The,
King David.
you
I almost believed it was him. He definitely believed.
who's he?
In 1998, when I was there was a guy who was King David with a harp walking around, and I think the
Oh,
story was that he was a guy from America, and then he got the Jerusalem syndrome and started dressing and acting it all out.
interesting. Yeah, so for sure, yeah, I relate to that. Definitely relate to your feeling in Tzfat and in Yerushalayim.
Oh, I remember
Uh,
taking the bus up to Sfat for Lag Bomer, and somebody was talking to me, and I could not pay attention to them because I was just surrounded by the mountains, and it was at night, and the moon was out, and I was thinking, oh my gosh, where am I going? This place is just, I feel like I'm driving into another world. It's Sfat at night. It was just incredible. I recommend everyone who can to go there. Um,
yeah,
so we've hit about 40 minutes. I've received a lot of great feedback, and I want to keep it concise. And we did two Mishnayot again, just like the
yeah,
first session. So I think we're making good progress.
yeah. There's definitely a lot to discuss. It's a very short book. It's a very short Sefer, but I think you could speak hours just about one letter here. So
It is amazing, and I love this because I love the Zohar, but this is and I think the Zohar is critical, especially I think for us as a Jewish nation, it's really critical. But I think as a universal book that really I could study with anybody and talk about how's the world made, and this just is such an eye-opening book about really focusing on the whole world. I
yeah,
think we as Jews need to focus on Am Yisrael as our unique nation, and then to focus on the whole world and how is it created, and I think it's just an amazing Sefer. So I'm really glad we're learning it. Baruch Hashem.
yeah, for sure, for sure. No, it's very universal.
It's very universal. It's very much something you could share with everybody.
Yeah, and I think we should dissect a bit more this fourth Mishnah here. With, like you said, there's an opening here to do a musical entry with a meditation.
Oh yeah.
Um, idea of laying out the Chokhmah um, and
I think at
yeah,
some point you're right. We should do something about talking about the Abalafia permutations and how music would line up with that, and kind of what we'd like to do for the Siyum HaSefer Yetzirah.
Yosef Atzira, yeah,
Let's talk about that on the next one, and start to lay that out, because now that we've mentioned Chachma consciousness and Rabbi Nachman and music and silence, I think this is the time to lay out where Abalafia fits and what his particular school brought. Great.
yeah,
Great. In
fantastic.
Jerusalem, Ephraim Wenger. In Memphis, Tennessee, Jason Caplan.
Thank you very much. Okay, have a great week. Shall we both?
Have
See
a
you.
great week, and hopefully you'll see your book soon.
Yes.